You get the point? I was mentioning it theoretically by way of mouth, and I am also doing it. Jump, jump, jumping, 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 jumping. I am jumping. I am jumping. What am I doing, class? You are jumping. So as they go home in a playing mode, I am jumping like that, they are going. It sticks. As they are playing at home, what comes to mind is our teacher taught us about the word jump. How do you jump? Because I was doing it, so you are jumping. Running, you also have to demonstrate. What are you doing? I am running. Something that is practical oriented kind of teaching. So we are saying on pragmatism is thought and works. So thought in action, thinking in action, thinking by doing. Okay? Now, how do we do this? This is kind of a scientific inquiry which involves experience. Scientific inquiry involving experience. So we are getting an idea here, and we have to put that idea into action. So the idea is in the mind, but we have to bring that idea which is in the mind into action by doing. How do we do it? There is a process now that has to be followed, and that is why a pragmatic method is scientific in nature. How is it scientific? Because we need to follow the methodology. We need to observe. We need to verify the results. And we need to come up with a conclusion of what we have observed, verified, and concluded. That process is what we are calling pragmatism. I think I do. And so when somebody says you have to be pragmatic in your way of handling things, what is that somebody saying? You need to think and apply. It's not the old philosophy that we have always engaged in, where most philosophers would sit and think and think. Ask questions of whether God exists or not. But what do you do with that information? At the end of it, you say, the nature of a philosopher is to think, but not to come up with solutions. That kind of philosophy. But just to help you come up with solutions. That's not what we're talking about in pragmatism. What we are saying is, we need a verifiable means of coming up with solutions to problems. So the target is we need to find solutions. How? By using the experimental method. When we are going to venture into an experiment, and then we are going to observe, and then we are going to verify, and then we are going to conclude. This is not just a logical kind of a statement where we would just merely say, oh, women are weak. Wednesday is a woman, therefore Wednesday is weak. in such a generalized logical method, which is fallacious. No. I hope we understand what a fallacy means when I talk about fallacious. An error in reasoning. And I hope we understand what an error is, right? A thinking that has been taken as wrong from time immemorial. This is the way things should be. Which is a wrong kind of thinking. Women are weak. That's what we know. Men should not be found in the kitchen. That's an office for women, girls. That's what we know. But in the actual sense, I can cook better than most women, after all. I can go for a training in what? Catering and be the best cook. Or cook the same way some women cook. So the wrong way of thinking is what we call an error. But pragmatism encourages teaching learners by having creative ideas and doing them. So that's the scientific method we're talking about, and not the logical science that we are talking about. We want to see results. And the kind of results that we have to see are not those which are in the mind, but just using the categorical imperatives for the syllogisms for the statements. What we want are fruits, where a child is going to learn the word jump, the word walk, the word touch, and they have to touch. What are you touching? I'm touching a pipe. What are you touching? I'm touching a whiteboard marker. I have to believe, I have to see, I have to believe, I have to confirm by touching the actual object. Then I know this is the whiteboard marker, not in the mind. That's how we children learn. We use the philosophy of consequentialism. Facts. You are there. I have to prove that you are there by seeing you physically. You are there. And that's why others have said, let's be practical when doing things, right? When we are teaching children, we have to use the learner-centered method. I mentioned the way I do. I jump. And so, after I jump, you have seen. Jump. 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 Because when you do, it will be difficult for you to forget. You can even be dreaming that you are jumping, right? Why? Because you participate in the jumping action. In short, in pragmatism, we look at the last things, the fruits, and not just the words. Is that clear? Yes. It's okay? All right. So we say the truth is what is practical, because we, as pragmatists, believe that the truth is what works. Right? We believe that for the vehicle to move, it needs to have tires. It needs to be whatever, mechanically okay. All right. And so there is need for experience when we're talking about pragmatism. is determined by experimentation. Can a car move? Let me ignite it. All right? Can it start? All right? Let me invert the gear. Can it start? Experimentation. When I act, it has to be done. Pragmatism. Okay? Good. And so we should say that man reacts or produces knowledge as he interacts with the environment. Because it deals with experience, right? You can write a better book by the environment that you interact with. And so you're going to produce the knowledge based on the environment that you interact with. So man, with his ideas, acts upon the environment and then undergoes a certain consequence or undergoes certain consequences. The knowledge that is acquired is rooted in experience, in short. And we are saying when we relate to child education on the foundational level, children grow and develop through experiences. Hence, learning is based on the dynamic sense experience. And education in this instance is based on experience and action. You learn by starting things slowly by slowly as you move through life in your environment. And if we follow the pragmatic way of education, we would say that knowledge keeps changing. Education aims at constantly changing society for the better. How does education aim at changing society constantly for the better? It's because as we move through life in our environment, we are experiencing some lapses that need to be filled up, some gaps that need to be filled up. And so when we realize those gaps, we think of better solutions of how to do it. For example, when we were coming in the morning, there has been a lot of road traffic jam, right? That is the experience we are going through, we are moving through. That needs to give us good modern ideas of how to solve that problem. We need to increase the roads, size of the roads, right? So that people cannot be going for it late. How are we doing that? We are learning by experience. Ideas are coming because of what we are experiencing. So we need to make that better. The same way we're dealing with learners, children. We live with the children. Let's not have a curriculum that is too focused with pregnancy. Let's learn them. Let's see how they react, and from that, we come up with a plan that is going to solve what the children want. Not the restricted education system that we are having nowadays, which is state control. And so maybe you would say that education has to be school by school controlled, Or it has to be individually controlled? Yeah? What do you think? I study a child, and how a child is behaving is the kind of education that has to be given to this child, to that child, to that child. And then the director of this foundation school said, how many teachers am I going to have? This is going to be too expensive, right? There's always a better way of how to do it. You have the kids the whole day, and so you can scheme your work according to the number of students that you have. But this shouldn't be a large class. No. If you want to produce quality, have a sizable class of no more than 20. No. 10 would do you good. But in our African setup, that would be very expensive. Very expensive. And only a few who can afford would do that. But that would mean that then we are leaving the other population in the rural areas of patients out of the question. All this better education, which is pragmatic. Any questions? Education as a concept in a pragmatic way stipulates that, and according to John Dale, education is a process of life in itself. Education is life in itself. It's not just a mere preparation of life, it is life in itself. Meaning what? An individual learns through experience to adjust to life in society. How do you teach? The method of teaching. Children learn through cooperative and active participation in various school and real-life problem-solving activities. In pragmatism, children need to start learning how to solve problems. Now, when you are restricting them in a particular environment to a particular environment, what are you simply saying? They cannot learn to come up with and to face challenges and think of solutions in facing those challenges. Yeah? When I am with you as my father or mother, we are walking. I remain behind. Unfortunately, I hit something and I fall down. What's the immediate reaction? The way I will cry. Noise all over. What has happened? Maybe he's hurt too much. He's hurt too much. Why? I got mom and dad here, they will protect me like, carry me like. But when I am with my mates, we are running like that. And then I fall down. I don't want to look a weakling before my friends. So I just wait and leave my head. That's the psychology of children. What are they trying to do? To fit in the group so that you don't look at me as a weak soldier. I am strong. When they go home, that's when they start drinking now. What happened? I fell down. But he did not write. She did not write. The thinking of children. What is that doing? The society is making them to learn is making them strong, is making them to learn how to solve problems. So that process has started. That's the process of growth. Solution findings. One of the boys was playing with his friends on a seesaw. And as he was playing, it's like the friends pushed him too much, and then he fell other side on the hand, and the hand had a dislocation. The boy, in trying to be strong, I'm a man, was just holding the hand like this. But basically, the father came, and then he tries to take the boy. My son was not like this when he was living hard. So he tried to hold his hand, and then he was crying. What have you done? What happened? He couldn't say anything. And then the friend said, he fell. What is this? And the father got worried. Asked the teacher, said, I don't know anything. Because there was no teacher where they were playing. Are we seeing that? When children are playing, there should be an elderly person, a teacher or assistant teacher, to see how children are playing. Are they in danger? If they are pushing the seesaw too much or anything, you will hurt yourself. Take it easy. At home, this boy was being taught by the father that you are a strong boy. You are a lion. You know, boys do not cry, no matter what. And so the boy took that. My dad told me, boys do not cry, because boys are strong. You see what that did to the boy? The hand was broken, dislocated. When the father took the boy to Diana Hospital, Manuel told us, and looking at the boy, he's composed, you know, but he's swallowing the pain inside. How do we connect this to pragmatism? Children learn through a cooperative and active participation in various school and real-life problem-solving activities and situations. Did the boy solve the problem? How is the boy solving the problem? By not crying, he's solving the problem. Is he not killing himself? On the other hand, we are saying students should be given opportunities to prove themselves. Okay, that you are a man, don't cry. How we teach these children matter. Tell them. If you are hurt, don't hide. Because it might be that you are badly hurt. And the time you speak out, it may be too late. Okay? Alright, so in pragmatism, on the methods of teaching, we look at the potentialities of children. And we say that a potential signifies that somebody has got the ability to do something. A child has got the ability to do something, right? So we presume, and we assume that this child can learn this because it is learnable. And because the child has got the ability to learn. So you look at the interests of the children as well. Are there questions? Before we go to another school, of philosophy called natural reason. Fine, there are no questions, then we go to naturalism. Naturalism. Anybody who knows or who may try to explain what naturalism as a school of philosophy means? About nature? Okay, all right.
Not from t-shirt, but just from just
They don't learn from teachers, but
yeah, something. They just have a national. They don't think national. So I don't know.
How do you explain nature? How do you explain nature? When I look at you, am I looking at nature? When I look at the flowers, am I looking at nature? When I look at the mountains, hills, am I looking at nature? When I look at the moon, am I looking at nature? So, the beauty of naturalism is that it denies the existence of spiritual things. There is no spirit being that exists. It denies the existence of spiritual beings. Do I agree with that? Okay. No spiritual being exists. That's what we are saying as naturalists. I'm with them now. Whichever school of thought, I have to defend it. Unless you tell me to go against it. I'll go against it. No spiritual things exist would mean don't go to church, don't believe in spirits, because they don't exist and they don't make sense. Right? What makes sense in this universe is the created nurture. How nature is organized. So according to materialism, for example, the material world is the only real world that exists. This world we live in is the only real thing that is there. I don't believe in anything that is outside this material world. Because this is a reality that I can see. And so I cannot think of anything outside this reality. Does that make sense? So naturalism states that the material world is being governed by a system of natural laws and money. The material world is being governed by a system of natural laws and money. What are these natural laws? A system of natural laws and money. So beautiful. Think about natural law. A person is born, a person grows up, a person dies. It's natural law. That's how things have been. That you have to be born, you have to live, you have to die. It's natural law. Right? That's how it has been. That when you grow old at a certain point, you stop walking. You start growing, you go back to like a baby again. That your skin, like tiny skin to useless, in fact, better than that of a baby. I mean, worse than that of a baby. Natural. And that there is a dominant being, man, over other beings. So naturalists have regard for actual, factual situations and realities. Actual, factual situations and realities. And they believe that nature is everything. That is there. Nature is that which is. And in philosophical terms, we say there is a branch of philosophy called cosmology, where it studies nature in itself, the cosmos, the study of nature. That's cosmology. And when there are those people who are studying philosophy, and at some point they were referring to chaos as nature. So when we learn about the way this philosophy, the way cosmos, whenever we saw the chaos, we would be like, cosmos. They never understood what we were talking about. I said, cosmos. Hey, cosmos. We'll enjoy the whole, strange great game when our friends did not know what we were talking about. Cosmos, nature. Cosmology, the study of nature. And we are saying the naturalists believe that nature is everything. That is nature is the core of reality. And remember what they are calling reality. For them, behind everything, there is nature. Behind everything, there is nature. But again, they deny anything beyond nature. There is nothing beyond nature. Because everything is what? Are you thinking with me? Okay. Everything is what? Nature. What is nature? That which is there. Okay? And remember, they are saying they deny the existence of spiritualism. Spiritism. It does not exist. And so, that's why they're saying there is nothing beyond nature. Because everything is nature. And nature is something which is material. You get me? Nature is something which is material, something which is there. Nature is something which is there and so self-sufficient. It takes care of itself. It sustains itself. If it fails to sustain itself, it vanishes in form of and that's why when you see a human being, I'll be walking like this, and at a certain point, I'll be lying, right? When I'm lying, at a certain point, I start decomposing, right? When I start decomposing at a certain point, that decomposition turns into soil, right? from my decomposition, my manure is transformed into flowers, trees, and the like. Nature takes its course. Today we understand what nature is in itself, that it is self-sufficient when we look at what is happening in our country. Now that we have been hit with the problem of fertilizer, and that's when we are thinking of solutions to combat the lackness of fertilizer. And we are saying there is what we call in agriculture urine harvesting. Have you ever thought of that? Urine. So we have to start harvesting urine. If we have a toilet there or urinary system, there has to be a system that is making, like directing the urine to a certain place. So we keep the urine and take it, mix it with whatever, and we make fertilizer. Fertilizer we are going to apply to the maize, which we are going to eat. Nature is self-sufficient. Nothing out of us is useless because we sustain ourselves. We sustain each other as nature. What goes into the soil is going to come back to me, to you, because nature is self-sufficient. The philosophy of naturalism. Self-sufficient, self-determined, and self-governed. It has got its own laws. Does that make sense? So naturalists explain that the mind, for example, is an accident in the process of evolution. And it can be explained in terms of nature. The mind is an accident in the process of evolution. So for the naturalists, the mind is the function of the brain, which is material in nature. Trying to explain what you might come up with as a counter-attack to say, the mind is the mind, it's a spirit. A naturalist says the mind is a product of the brain. And when we talk about the brain, it is something which is physical, touchable, tangible, seeable, experiential, and experimentable. You cannot explain, you cannot experiment the mind. You explain the brain. Does it make sense? Trying to run away. So that this is a justification to say the mind is the brain. That engine to think is the brain, which is physical and material in nature. Because everything is material in naturalism. So we cannot think outside what is in the material world. What is physical? Okay. So we work with what we have. Come up with solutions on things which are around us. Don't think of something which is beyond you, because it doesn't exist. According to a naturalist, they believe that man is born good, naturally good. Okay? But he is just corrupted. by nature. He is born naturally good, but is corrupted by nature. Because we cannot have something which is outside himself to corrupt him. So nature corrupts man. In more philosophical explanation, nature corrupts nature. Does that make sense? Nature corrupts nature. That's the thinking of a naturalist. So if I do not want to be corrupted, what should I do? Why is it? But if we do not want to be corrupted, what should we do? Because nature corrupts nature. If in our Chichewa proverbs we say, is it a proverb? Trees which are closer to each other cannot avoid doing what? Rubbing each other. So it's like we are family. Huh? We can have a very serious fight, brothers, fighting, exchanging words. At the end of the day, we are eating the same thing. Nature corrupts nature. And somebody will say, no, this is confusing. This is just playing with words, right? But it's indeed true that nature corrupts nature. In the actual sense, you start a relationship, someone is corrupted by the other, the relationship is broken. You have a very wrong view of this relationship. Girls are very bad, women are very useless. Why? Because you corrupted my mind that this is so good, and you came out of it and left me and myself in this uncapable. Wow. You go and corrupt another one. And so you become a heartbreaker. Because somebody also corrupted you. Nature corrupts nature. Have you ever found or seen trees which are growing on other trees and they grow very healthy and start infringing the growth of the other tree? Nature corrupts nature. When you are eating kumba, today I will enjoy. Honestly, you will enjoy. The kumba is dead. And you are saying, I will enjoy. Nature corrupts nature. And when a lion catches a hyena or a buffalo, we feel bad, right? But when we are eating nyama ya kumba pork, we feel very okay, very good. Nyama ya mbuzi, msuzi wa mbuzi vile, okay. Okay. The mbuzi which has died, did it deserve to live? So nature is self-sufficient because it depends on each other for survival. Can somebody say something? I need a reaction. About nature corrupting nature. Survival on fellow nature. We are saying, you talk about the brain is not something which is outside the mind, because it is as a result of the physical brain which we can experiment on That is why doctors are able to say, I think this person is not behaving normal because part of this brain is not well functioning. Why are they able to determine like that? If it is something which is spiritual, they would not have managed to correct it. That's the thinking of the naturalist. So the brain is material in nature. Do we agree with that? Let's stop going to church. We are wasting time, according to the naturalist. Because there's nothing called spiritual. How are we going to attack them? Here they are. They want someone to hit them and crush them and say, you are lying. Naturalist, what is your take? And so the thinking is we must remain away from society. If man wants to remain pure and unadulterated, keep off society. Let's debate, let's discuss that now. Man should keep away from society in order to remain pure as he is born, in order to remain unadulterated. What do you think? Once we are born, they leave us and we survive on our own. Without any other interference from any other nature. Would that be possible? Is it a contradiction of what is being said? About the naturalists. Since they are saying that behind everything there is nature. Right? And then a statement comes in to say that man must remain or stay away from society if he wants to remain pure and unadulterated. What do you think? Let's talk. Okay. We need to remove you from. Unfortunately, you are already corrupted. Yes. Unfortunately. But if you give back to that small nature, put it in a very secure environment where nature will not affect on him or her. And then we are saying that nature depends on nature. Because for everything, behind everything, there is nature. And so a naturalist won't defend and say, yes, behind everything, there is nature. Because this being cannot become without you and you coming together. But once I become, let me have a separate environment before what surrounds me intoxicates me and makes me impure. And then you would want to say, how do I survive? The naturalist life. So those are areas where you also think higher and counterattack the naturalists. One beautiful thing in philosophy is you need to discuss the idea. You and the idea that has been presented, and you start discussing, asking questions. What if the answer like this? How am I going to counterattack again? So your way of looking at things and understanding things expands. Your scope of understanding things expands. That is how philosophers think deeper and higher. So we need to, as we align, we follow step by step. If there is a statement that has been added, we are able to say, excuse me, sir, madam. I think initially it was stated that behind everything there is nature. And then how possible is it that man should again stay away from the nature that has brought him into being? Because in other way, we are saying nature is the one which supports man. So how can man survive without nature? Okay. So that was the general outlook of naturalism. General philosophical understanding of naturalism. Now, when we look at how it is related to education, naturalism or education. So the naturalists on education advocate the development of a child without any restriction. They advocate the development of a child without restriction. I want us to discuss this together. Is it possible to develop a child without restriction? Is it possible to develop a child, to grow a child up without any restriction? That's what we say here. Develop a child without restriction. Because if you restrict the child, he is going to grow in the light of what you want him or her to grow up. I will not have my own life. If you tell me, don't do this, I am doing what you want and what you want, and not how I would have loved to become. If I grew up alone, what will happen? They advocate the development of a child without restriction. Development of a child must be from within and not from without. And somebody says, okay, sir, if I am to leave the child, have her own life, his own life, that would mean I would observe or see the child going towards a deep well, and I shouldn't do anything. Because the statement says without restriction. So if a child is going towards fire, I don't interfere. Because that becomes a restriction if I interfere, right? What do you think? Is naturalism right on education? Yeah. Don't interfere in the growth of a child, in the development of a child. Because if you do, you are developing a child in your life. And then somebody will say, Yes, now, Professor, this was said that God created man in his likeness. Remember, as naturalists, we are not talking about God. He doesn't exist. Are we together? According to the naturalists, this is how we should understand philosophy. There are other philosophers who have defended the existence of God, and others have denied the existence of God. So we should not generalize philosophy to say, no, philosophers don't believe in God. That's a lie. That is a fallacy of generalization. There are others who believe and others do not believe in the existence of God. So in this case, we are saying he doesn't exist under the naturalists. So let's not think of no spiritual beings, they don't exist. What exists is what I can see and what is there. Natural. That is why there is a natural law. That things come into being, things live, things vanish. That is the natural order. That others must live and others die, and that others must live on others in order to live, to survive. I know. And if you are a philosopher, a person with this kind of philosophy, you become a utilitarian. Okay? I'm going to use you for my own benefit. It's me and myself, right? So I don't care. There are such people, right? I become your friend because of what I want to get from you. Utilitarian kind of philosophy. Those are natural. I depend on nature in order to survive. It's the survival of the fittest, where only the strong will survive, will prevail. You get it? Does that make sense? Only the strong are going to prevail over the weak in order for them to survive. So, if the West comes to the West, if we are all human beings and there's no food, the one who is going to kill the weaker one, the other, is going to eat the other in order to survive. Are we understanding that in that? Only the strong will survive. And so we are saying, in terms of education, they advocate that a child must be from within, must develop from within and not from without. Don't restrict the child. Meaning that a teacher should should allow the child to learn by himself in the love of nature. Meaning, nature becomes the great book of life to this child. Not you as a teacher. Then what is your role? Why are we saying teacher? Meaning that somebody has to be there to guide the child. Can somebody counterattack? If somebody is there to guide the child, then it means that someone, in some way, will be restricting the child. And naturally, you say, that's not restriction, it's guiding. Is guiding not restricting? They are different. It's different, right? But when you're about to fall into the well and say, don't. Is it guiding or restricting? Guiding. What are you guiding me?
Yeah, maybe some people do that.
I thought guiding is like you're instructing, do this, do that. If you tell me not to do what I want to do, then you are instructing me. Don't you think so? That's how philosophers think. That's why in most cases you will find philosophers becoming good lawyers. Very notorious lawyers. Why? They don't want to be challenged anyhow. For any point that you come up with, they need to counterattack. Already you are thinking of how do I counterattack this point? You know? The beauty of law is that you need to give preference. We need to refer to some previous cases. In as much as you are arguing, but where is the basis of your argument and judgment? You don't just argue from law. But a philosopher can produce points in here and confuse you. But they're very closely related with law. Okay, are there questions? The teacher should allow the child to learn by himself in the love of nature, where nature must be the greatest book of the child. The interests and attitudes of children should determine the education programs. The interests and attitude of children should determine the education programs. What do we mean? We observe the child in this environment and we record the interests of the child, and from the interests will come now the program that the child must encourage into. So my interests are the ones which have to determine what you are to prepare as a teacher. That's where the role of the teacher comes in, right? You have seen how I'm behaving. When you introduce a ball, I become very excited, you know? Running up and down. This one is the football. When we are out there to do some athletic things, I'm interested more in jumping, high jumping or long jumping. You know, this one is an athlete. When you introduce singing, my voice is so beautiful and sweet. Musician, singer. Come up with a program based on athletics, sports, physical education, and sport. Pamper me with that line. Don't give me 10 subjects. You are spoiling me, you are destroying me. And our thinking in Africa has been because we do not have a lot of people who are educated. So give them 10 subjects so that in case they need to have that broad knowledge for the subject. What are you doing? You are just killing us. Because you have a lot of us. At the end of it, we only know the basics. At the end of it, somebody gets very sick. And then we say, fly him to South Africa, fly him to India, right? Where there is special medical attention. There are specialists there. And we are busy giving people 10 subjects, 10 modules, 11 modules. You are going to specialize when you reach your master's level. Honestly, how many people reach the master's level? How many people reach a PhD there? Very few. Very important, right? Mhm. So this is an expensive way of doing things where we say we have to follow the interests of the children. If we follow the interests of the children, then there is a lot that we need to do in order to really understand, in order to really know the particular interests and the career pathway of this child and of that child. We need specialist teachers as well, psychologists to be involved in determining who this child will become later. Because if we make a mistake, then we mess up the life, the future of this child. All types of mental activities, for example, imagination, thinking, reasoning, and many others, are the functions of the brain. It's the brain that processes that. And so we are still running away, not running away, denying the existence of spiritism. If thinking is as a result of the brain, which is material, then there's nothing to talk about spiritualism or spiritism. Because something which is material cannot produce something which is spiritual. Have you ever heard of a saying which goes, good begets good, and evil begets evil? How can something which is physical beget something which is spiritual? Like impossible enough. Impossible. That's the thinking of a naturalist. In the education cycle, there is no room for a textbook. There is no room for a timetable. There is no room for a classroom because nature is what is teaching me what to do. Because I am learning from nature. So why put up all these things? Why do you think, where are we going with this thinking? Naturalism. You're wasting time coming up with buildings. For what? I can become a medical doctor in the traditional aspect. Somehow, if we think deeply, right? If I have to learn by experience, and if you do get medicine from the roots and trees and the parts of trees, the best way is to go in the bush and become a medicine man, specialist in this kind of medicine. And, these things we have tried and tested them during traditional education, indigenous education, ancient education, informal, as they called it, education. The white man calls it informal education. And what they do is formal education. Favored use of terminologies. And when we talk about informal education, the informal way of doing things, according to that, is there is no order in the way we do things. But naturalists are saying there is order. There is a natural order in the way the world runs. There is a natural order in the way the world runs. Why? Because it's nature that manages what? Nature. So you don't need books, you don't need rooms, you don't need anything. What we are doing here, we are going against nature. Because we are trying to build things which do not defeat us, which are bringing more trouble to us. Does that make sense? Why do we have examinations? Why? You are tuning my mind into something that you want and not what I want. This is against natural philosophy. Allow me to enjoy myself. Allow me to explore my own life so that I can enjoy myself. Have you ever heard of that song? Allow me to enjoy myself. Allow me to enjoy myself. Leave me alone kind of philosophy. But don't leave me to find a running river. Guide me. All right. So in this kind of philosophy, the chalk and the board have no space because it's nature that I have to live by. It's nature that I have to learn by. Okay? The teacher has no significant role to play apart from determining what kind of programs to develop from. Now we talk about the real life. If we had to follow the naturalistic way of philosophy, as a teacher, I just need to know what kind of program to develop for this particular child, according to the interest that I discovered in interacting with this particular child. There is what we call the philosophy of natural consequences, which I referred to earlier on as consequentialism. We look at the result, the end result. Okay? The end result is what we want. How this child is going to be here as his own or her own being. So by natural consequences, we mean, or consequentialism, we mean things happen spontaneously, like just flowing without putting too much effort. Once again, Aisha, have you ever had a situation where you are just friends, and from friends, just like people just discovered the PC. All right? Nobody proposed the rule. You get? And then you're like, but how do you start? I didn't understand. Okay? People are married. Nobody proposed the rule. It just happened spontaneously. It was just from one step to the next, things are happening. One step to the next, we are to get married. Children. What happened? Ask yourself now. Spontaneous. So children learn through experience. So if children learn through experience, then we need to give them more time to experience their environment. If we do not give them the freedom to experience nature, then it's what happens when you have kept children in a boarding school, single sex, only girls, only boys. I go home, what do? I don't want you to play with other mates. So if you want anything, tell me. I'll take you to ShopRite, we go and buy. From there, in the car. And this boy is growing, admiring the other mates who are walking by themselves. But this is my father, this is my mother. When am I going to be free? You start looking for ways to sneak around. At the end, you misfire. Because you are not sure how to interact and whatever. And so the first person that comes is that's you accept. Because I don't know whether I'm going to have another opportunity. And you end up falling in a big ditch. Because you don't know the person. In most cases, children who have been brought up in a co-education school end up becoming like nicely outgoing and very productive. Why? They know how to survive life. They know how to relate with others in life. Socialization. They know how to take care of themselves. They know how to compete. But Kodesh was being brought up in a girls' Dikaeso mission school. Very strict, very strict. You are not so sure of, is this which I'm about to do correct or not? Like, you get the point? But those who have been brought up, brought up in a co kind of boys and girls are there, it's okay to do it. If I do that and I have been brought up in a single sex school, my body will change. Hey, what have I done? It's wrong, it's very wrong. So hard. Hey, that's very wrong. How do you apply? And get up. No. Why? I have lived in a different society, which has taught me you have to do this, not right. This is against naturalistic philosophy. Let nature take its course. Give children the freedom to discover their own environment, and you will know their interest from there. Come up with a program that is befitting from there, that will make them what they are. Okay? So whatever you may give a child, make sure that you don't press the child too much. Do this. Don't press them too much. Your duty is to observe the child. Okay? The duty is to observe the child. What is the importance of this method? Why is this method important in education? Foundation. It helps a teacher to know the strengths and weaknesses of the learner. It helps the teacher to know the weaknesses and strengths of the learner. 2, we are saying the importance of the naturalistic method One, it helps the teacher to know the strengths and weaknesses for learner. Two, it helps the teacher to know where to place the learner in terms of career pathway. It helps the teacher to know where to place the learner in terms of career pathway. Career pathways. I hope you understand by career pathway. Career pathway. There are those who want to become priests, pastors. What is their career path? Religious men for women, or people who would be waiting for the church, right? And then there are those that you may discover are doctors in making, and so you have a curriculum for them which falls under sciences, right? Pure sciences, and those who are on social arrangement, you say, okay, these will do social sciences, they'll take social sciences. Pure sciences, social sciences, and others who are good at Zaman skills, so you take them for the skills vocation. And those are the ones who are found maybe in skills training colleges, like vocational centers, like Lilongwe, technical, okay? So you discover children's career pathways when they are still young. One, you have experienced how they do things, you have guided them. Okay? Good. If it is said that the mind is born good, it is just corrupted by nature, do you remember that one? Then it fits to also say that the child is brought up in a learning environment which is not conducive. A child that is brought up in a learning environment which is not conducive will not as well develop well. Right? So the learning environment matters as well. The control that we put to the child also matters. Let the child grow up. Let's not too much push the child. And we will see what comes out. Everybody has got their own genes. That's why we are individuals. We are separate from each other. Despite there might be other things that we might inherit from this genealogy, but we are independent. You have your own lives, I have my own lives. Okay? So more practical-oriented approach of learning has to be encouraged in naturalistic philosophy, and more respect is given to the way a child must develop individually. We must respect that. We should accord that opportunity for the child to have his or her own way through life. Because of the individual brain abilities. Each one has got their own abilities of how to do things depending on the nature of everyone's brain. Okay? The way your brain has developed is different from the way his brain or that one's brain has developed. this comes or refers back to how a child developed when he or she was in the mother's womb. How you were developing in your mother's womb and how your mother took care of you or took care of herself when you were developing. Were there fights or not? Was she eating enough food or not? Was she doing exercises or not? The psychological treatment of a pregnant woman determines the development of the brain of the child. So that if this girl or woman is being mistreated by the husband or the father of the child to be, then even psychologically, once she complains, the child inside also complains. That will determine even the slow rate of growth of the brain. The healthier the pregnant mother, woman, the healthier the development of the brain of the child. The healthier the general development of the child. That means there is need for special education to be taught to both the man and the pregnant woman during that 9-month period, because it also acts as a determinant to the level of the brain development. There are others who are trained as slow learners, right? And there are others who are fast learners, others moderate learners. It depends how your brain is able to capture ideas and concepts. Quicker, medium, or slower. The way we act and react and pass in the examinations is as a result of how our brain functions. If our brain functions quicker, then it's referred to how the brain developed. When we are saying, hey, our brain, you think quicker, faster, reasonable. Well, she was not being bothered about things. She was a happily pregnant woman. Also, remember Visa. Meanwhile, there is life here. What do you think will be the outcome of that change? Stunted growth will also affect the brain development. What comes out later on is the child who's got problems in thinking, in doing things as compared to others. So naturalism is saying, let nature develop its course, take its course. But in taking its course, nature depends on nature. The child to be born depends on the father and mother and the environment surrounding in order for this child to develop physically fit, which also determines the development and healthy growth of the brain. Any questions? Does it make sense? That is about the natural philosophy or naturalism as a branch of philosophy. Qual è l'origine? Ti deve essere poco. We shall meet again next week. God willing, same time, same room. Thank you so much.